All right, so we left off with variations, and we have our kind of more or less standard variations now, or categories for those variations, I should say. And then we made a model manager for each variation. Now, you absolutely could use variation categories as another model that would then be associated, each variation would be associated to any given category. But that's getting, I think, a little bit too far as to what we are actually building. So for you, if you needed to change categories relatively often, then you might consider adding a whole model for it. Or, I mean, you could in theory have a lot of categories here as well. But we're just going to kind of stick with this of these three different categories, and the process from here will be very similar. If you did actually hook up another category, but then you would have to change this stuff. You'd have to change quite a few things. And I think it's just adding too much functionality at this point, where variation might be actually pretty beneficial for us, but the variation category, not so much. All right, so now that we have variation working, and it's working fine, and then we have our category set up to it, and then in that with those categories, we actually set up our loops in here. In our form for actually sending data. Now, we had it where before we had it as get, so our method was get, so it was actually going to this URL, and then we went into that URL and we used these get clauses here. So now what we're actually going to do is change it from get to post. So we're actually going to post the data, so we'll do post here instead of get. And with post, we have to have a CSRF token. So this gives us a little bit better security for what we're actually doing. So there's no real way of manipulating it without this token, right? So you have to have that token, and that adds just another level of security, that's all. All right, so now that we have this, when we look at our view, a lot of these things aren't going to work anymore. So like this is not going to work, this is not going to work, neither is the quantity. So we can actually just go ahead, and I'm going to delete all that. So that goes away there. So we're going to have to do quite a few things to actually update how our whole cart works. But that's okay, because it's all about improving and learning how this whole thing kind of fits together. So now if we look at this, we've got our cart, that's fine, but let's actually use this post data and grab it. Let's actually see what's coming through on this post data. So we already have that, we still have the slug coming through, so it's still showing us that product that we want, which is good. So it's still giving us the product, but now we have several new things. So we have variations, right? We have size, and actually I should change that to color, right? Because that's actually color. So now we have size and color. So we have those actual variations, and we still have quantity, right? Quantity is still in there, and that's good. So now in our post, when we handle our post data, so we'll say if request.method equals to post, just like that, we can actually see this post data by printing out request.post. You can print out the entire request, but that's not necessary. Let's just print out post data, so request.post. So let's actually try this out. We'll save it, and we'll go into our product. And I'm actually going to add some new variances. I'm going to add a color variance, so or two color variances, that is, variations. So we'll pick our product, and I'll add the category of color, and I'll say red. Save it. Add variation. Product 1, not package, but color, and green. Save it. All right. So now I have a couple product variations. So if I go in here, I see green and red and small and medium, so I'll just change those. Hit add to cart, and update quantity is not defined, so let's actually see what's going on here. So if update quantity, when I deleted a lot of things, a lot of other stuff also went with it. So I'm going to just go ahead, and I'm going to comment out everything until we can actually get to a point where we will actually update quantity. So let's comment out everything, actually including all this stuff. So everything, and then just all it's doing now is just going to get the request data or the post data, and then it's going to return us to the cart. So let's run a refresh and we can confirm form resubmission, hit continue, and now it takes us into the cart. It actually didn't do anything except it printed out all this stuff. So now we have color and we have size, right? So we have these different categories in here, and then the list of items that are actually associated to that, right? So in the case of color, it actually gives us a list of things that we can work with. So let's actually grab those items. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for item in request.post print item. Okay, so let's get rid of the request post and let's try that again. Add cart. All right, so now we actually have stuff we can work with, right? So let's go ahead and get the values of these. So these are the keys that are in that post dictionary. So let's get the values of them. And all we have to do is I'll just first say key equals to that. And then val, so value, equals to request.post and key. Right, so if we just looked at the post data, let's just do that again. I'm actually going to print it above. We'll print it out. Print request.post. So we can see that data again. And it comes back as a dictionary, and this allows us to grab items from that dictionary. So let's look at it. Go here, click on that, add to cart. And we see the dictionary here. And I actually set those key and value, but I didn't actually print them out. So print key and then value. Let's try that one more time. Add to cart. So now we see that there's this dictionary here, and then it's doing the key and the value. Key, value, key, value. So these are key value pairs. And what this means is we can now use these key value pairs to grab things that we need. Now, first off, QTY, we already know that's going to come through. So quantity is definitely going to come through. So let's actually set quantity up here. We don't have to iterate through it. We'll just say QTY equals request.post, and that's QTY. So that's grabbing the quantity. We already got that. All right, so now we want to actually grab the valuation, or the variation, excuse me, of any particular one based off of the title. So we have the key, right? So we have the key of it, which would be, let's say, scroll up a little bit. So the key is the size. So that's actually the category, and the small would be the actual title. So we can use that for what we're trying to get, which is the actual variation of it. So let's actually import variation into our view. Scroll up and import variation. So we want to get the actual object or the instance of this variation. And that's what we'll do in each for loop with these keys and values, these key value pairs. So what we'll do is we'll do v equals to, so variation, we have value and variation, equals to variation.objects.get, and then we'll get we want to do the category, and then I'll do I exact, so it ignores case values, so upper or lowercase. 2 underscores I exact ignores upper or lowercase. Key, and then we'll do title I exact value. Right, so we've got those two, and with this try, it's going to ignore keys that don't make sense, or keys or values that don't make sense. Like quantity wouldn't make sense in here; it will run an error. So if it's not there, we'll just pass. Okay, so I'm going to print out the V if that's there. So I'm going to get rid of this key value pairs. I'm going to get rid of post, and all it's going to do is it should print out keys and values with this. So category is, if we look in here, we have category here and title. Category is one of these, and we set those categories as our keys here. And then we've got a title. We set the value being lowercase when it's actually uppercase, or it might be uppercase. We don't know, but iExact allows us to ignore that. So let's actually see this. Go back into our product, go to add to cart, and let's see if it printed anything. If I scroll down, it printed red and small. Perfect. Is that what I actually did? I didn't check. Well, default is red and small, so that's what I did. Let's do medium and green. Hit add to cart. medium, and green. So now it's actually pulling in the instance of whatever that is, right? So it's better than what we had before with those gets. It's actually pulling a object that's an instance of, well, something. We don't actually have it as an instance of the product. So it's probably not that good. We need to have product in here. So now we can start to actually uncomment certain things out. So like, let's cut this product out and actually maybe cut out the cart. And I'm going to put this above everything. And we want to uncomment these with command and the slash. That will uncomment everything out. So now I can use product in this object's get, right? So in models, or in our model, we can look back and see our variations as product. So I can add product in here. So product equals to product. So that's the keyword argument, and then the product, the actual keyword is, or the instance that we're going to be using is product right there. So this is grabbing that specific variation, because there might be more variations with colors or with different categories and the same title with a different product, right? So small and green might be on a much different product too, right? So we want to make sure that we're grabbing the variation based off of the actual product that we're working with. So another idea here is we could actually go in our single, and instead of using the title for the value, we could actually use the ID. So this variation then, using the ID, would make it a lot easier on us for when we are actually setting this stuff. So the title is still going to, so the end user will still see the title, but if we set the ID for the variation, then we don't have to worry about this get call ever really failing on us. So instead of doing all this, I'm just going to delete all that and just do ID equals to val. So the value is definitely going to be a number now because of how we set the value here, right? So this value is going to be passed through. The key is going to be the same, but the value will be different. So the value is now going to be an ID, so I can actually test this out. Go back in here, product, add to cart, and we see small came through. We did not see red come through. Let's try green this time. So now it looks like only small is actually coming through. So maybe we're running into some issues there. So let's go back. Maybe that key, the ID, is actually not going to work as well as doing all this. So let's turn these back into title and product, add small and red. So that actually does work a little bit better for us. But really, in theory, if we had the ID, then it would work a little bit better. And it probably had something to do with our for loop or how it was actually stored in the post data as far as how the ID came through. So, I mean, we can get into that some other time, but now that we can actually get these objects, we can start making a list of all these objects that we're going to be using. So let's say product variations equals to some list. So I'll just call it P underscore V. So product variation. Or let's just call it product var so we don't get too confused. Product var. That's going to be a list. So now we can append this list. So product var append the instance that we just worked with. So the V, which is going to be that, we're going to append that to the variations that we have. And now in our cart items, we can actually update our cart. So let's actually uncomment out all this stuff and see how we're going to update it. Now, first off, our cart item, if we look in the models for that, we see that there are no variations in here. So what we want to do now is also add a new field for variations. And what this is going to do is we'll have to have a different cart item for each variation. So we're going to have to do a get or create per variation, right? But that's going to have to be for unique variations. So what we have here is a little bit of a problem, right? So we have variations and we're able to add different variations, but what if we add the product again with a new variation? We might run into some issues there. So for now, what we'll do is we're going to change our cart item and I'm going to add in variation as a foreign key. So I'm going to import it. I got to do from products.models underscore or comma variation. And now we'll do a foreign key to variation, but we'll do a many to many field. So variations equals to models.variations, or excuse me, many to many field, and variation. And we're going to just say null equals to true, blank equals to true. Because again, not everything's going to have variations on them, so we should allow it to be blank. We can keep the notes in there, but now I can add variations to any given product cart item. All right, so let's go ahead and do the schema migration for that. So schema migration products auto. Oop, not products, but carts. Python manage.py migrate carts and run the server. Okay, so now that we have that, we can go in our view, and so cart item now is, we're still going to get the product, but now maybe we don't do get or create, right? Because we might actually want to add more than one product. So the cart items, we're going to have to come back and figure out how we're going to change that. So we'll leave it for get and create later for now. But what if we have the same product but multiple variations of that product in our cart? We should be able to accept that. So we'll have to worry about that later. But for now, we have the cart item, and now we just want to add the variations. So product variations in update quantity down here, all we just do is if the length of product variations is greater than 0, we are going to try to do cart item dot variations equals to product var. Sorry, not that. We'll do for item in product variation dot add item. All right, so this is going to add it to that many to many field. Right, so this one right here. This will add it. It will go through. If the length is greater than 0, it's going to go through and add those variations. Now, of course, if we change the quantity, it's going to delete it, right? So if we make it 0, it'll still delete it. But this should work. So now cart items.all, that's still the same. That has not changed the way we currently have it. So that works out for us. Yeah, or actually this should be cart item set.all. Not sure how that changed, but that should still be cart item set, just like what we see here. Sorry. That should actually not be there anymore, so I'm just going to delete that because we really don't need it. All right, so let's think about this again. What we're going to do here is we're going to get the cart, we're going to get the product, and then if the request method is post, so this means it's updating something, then it's going to grab the quantity and it's going to go through all this stuff. So realistically, I'm going to want to move all of this stuff into my request method of being post. So if it is post, then it's going to do all this stuff, and then we can just return the same cart. Either way, it's going to return us back to the cart. So if it's not post, it will return us back to the cart. So I'll just add else, and it'll go to the cart as well. All right, so if the method is post, it's going to go to the cart. If it's not, it's going to go to the cart. Either way. So we can fix that sometime later. But all right, so let's go ahead and try this out. Go into e-commerce, product, add product. Update quantity is not defined. So this one right here, we actually deleted it already. So we can just get rid of that. And we can also just get rid of that whole thing and just unindent that, because if the quantity is less than or equal to 0, we set the quantity right here. Okay, so that works. And product var, so product var, yeah, that works. Okay, cool. And we'll reformat it. We got an issue on line 70. Line 70 is another else. Oh, that was from the other if. Delete that. Okay, run it. Cart item has no variations. Oh, variations. I spelled it incorrectly. So let's go ahead and make sure that we grab the correct one. So variations spelled correctly. There we go. Let's try that again. And notes is not defined. Oops. All right. Run it through. And it looks like we had a successful add of variations. Let's just try it again with our product. I'll do medium and green, add to cart. Notes doesn't matter, we can worry about that later. Let's go to admin, cart items, product 1, and we have multiple. Now we have 4 different variations. So this is probably not great, right? I added it twice now, and now we have all 4 variations. But realistically, if we're going to add a variation, it should separate. So if we had 2 sets of variations, that we would actually want to separate it. So we would probably want to remove all of the variations first, and then add them. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's really simple. We could just add clear, so cart item dot variations dot clear. We would want to do that before that for loop, so not each time in the for loop. All right, so this is clearing out every variation that's in there for this particular cart item. Now again, if we wanted to have multiple items with multiple variations of the same product, then we'll have to figure out how to make this a little bit better. But for now, this is going to work for us, so let's go ahead and check it out. I'll go back into my product. We'll add green and medium, add to cart. Looks like I didn't get any errors. If I go into admin, cart items, I think it's that top one, we now see medium and green. So those other variations went away. And let's just make sure our quantity is 1, but that was our default quantity. So let's actually see if we can change it to like 8. Medium and red, add to cart. All right, so now we have 8 as our quantity. And then if I go into the admin, we look at the cart items and it says 8 and then medium and red. Okay, perfect. So that actually changes the variation for us for that specific instance. So now the very last thing we'll do on this one is actually add in like variations or like yeah, so they're just variations for now. We'll just leave that as is, and then we'll do variations dot all, and then that will give us a list of all of that stuff. And we go in here. There we go. So we now have our variations in there. We might want to come up with a different, maybe more user-friendly name, or just put the variations as a list underneath the item. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. I think that's a little bit better anyway. So in the item, so if, we'll do if item.variations.all, then end if. We'll do a nice little for loop in here. So do a UL class first, unordered list, and then for item dot for item in for not item but sub item in item dot variations dot all end for, and we will just say sub item dot title and sub item dot category. Maybe we want to do cap first. Sub item dot title cap first. Refresh. Make sure these are list items, right? So I need to do li and li. And we'll get rid of that column. Do a refresh in here. There we go. So it looks like we had one too many list items in here, and that's because of that. We need to close that off right there. There we go. So now we have those variations showing up. Size is medium, color is red, the quantity, the price, everything's starting to really look better. And overall, this using models and doing it this way and posting the data is probably overall a lot more secure. And if you look at any other site, that's typically what they'll do, is do posting the data somewhere that will handle it and then update the cart accordingly. All right, and what we also see is we still see the cart has 2 items, and that's still working. Remove, not so much. And also update certain things that we'll still need to do within the cart, but we'll leave that for another time. All right, see you soon.